Speaksies.
Beard care is a passionate affair, and just like me, Viking Revolution takes that very seriously. Let's face it, your beard makes a statement, so make it a good one and embrace the Viking experience. From beard oils and balms, to combs and brushes, and of course, mustache wax, you'll find everything you need at VikingRevolution.com. Don't have a beard? Sorry to hear that. I bet you have a special beard in your life though. Viking Revolution Premium Beard Care Products. You deserve the best, and so does your beard. So as you know, we're both parents, obviously. Obviously.
Very, very fertile looking men.
We are fertile, and I have a son who just turned 13. And it's weird because when you turn 1 year older,
right,
you would think it's just a number, but it's not. Like there have been some big changes. And I've noticed too that, some of the changes I've seen are he's going through, I don't know if you ever had one of these, but an Irish Spring phase where he wants everything to be Irish Spring.
Does he use too much of it?
No, it's just I go to get soap. He's like, make sure you get Irish Spring.
He's got a brand. Well, it smells good.
Yeah. And did you have a brand? I'm springing this on you. Did you have a brand when you were a kid?
I remember always being very intrigued by Irish Spring. That occasionally that would show up, and maybe it was at other people's homes. But I think we were like an Ivory or Dove family, and I was way too lazy to be invested in anything else. But I do remember that time where you realize that you can have your own scent,
right? And your tastes aren't that sophisticated yet,
no. But
you kind of start. There's candy that you sort of claim. This is like middle school,
right?
You're like gosh, I was a the thing that you dip, what is it? The dipping sticks or...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, whatever that thing was called. That was like my thing.
That was way too complicated.
I liked Brute as my go-to deodorant. But to me, there was nothing better than that.
Right.
For Logan is Irish Spring. But he's dabbled into Old Spice.
Oh, I'm an Old Spice man. So
okay.
That's good to hear. I think I locked into that early. I think every young man has to use Brute at one point. Like it's on your driver's license application. Like if you haven't tried Brute at least once, you need to go back and do that. But I locked into Old Spice.
Yeah.
And I think I was fortunate that I never got too much into. I have some nephews. I don't know if your son's gotten into this of like embracing the body wash.
Oh yeah. Well that.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is he wants to use specifically Irish Spring body wash.
He's got a brand.
Yeah. Well, and he's washing, which is also good because there is also that thing that's clicked now that I don't have to tell him to take a shower. And I knew it would happen. But it's finally happened to where he wants to smell good. My daughter obviously is still just a precious little baby, even though she's almost 10, but she hasn't hit that phase yet. So it'll be interesting to see if your daughter, 'cause she's not too far away, she's going to pick her own scent as well.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a good.
Keep us updated.
I got to see how the lady version of that works.
Right.
I do want to give you a spoiler alert from having older nephews.
Oh,
is that there's the time where the boys initially pick a scent and really into that, and then it goes away again for a little bit when they become smelly again. And I found this out. I was trying to find something to discuss with my nieces. Who are, late tweens, early teens, and there's not too much I can talk to them about. But I found if I ask them, what do your brothers smell like lately? And that takes up a lot of time. Good discussion. And also encouraging to say, look, they're boys.
Yeah. They're
going to come out of it eventually. But, they're in a stage right now that they will go in the shower for an hour and somehow smell worse when they come out.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, this episode of Origin of Speaksies brought to you by Old Spice, Brute, and Irish Spring.
It's a very subtle, surreal.
We'll bleep out the ones we don't get, or we'll just leave them all in and hope for the best. But all right, welcome to Origin of Speaksies. My name is Scott. I'm here alongside Steve as usual, and Steve's bringing the thunder tonight. What are we doing?
I am bringing the thunder. Well, before I get to our topic for this evening, I want to talk about a couple things. One, we have a guest tonight on Know Your Onions. Ms. Moxie LaBouche of the Your Brain on Facts podcast and book.
Yeah. She's an author.
Yeah.
And she has a very cool name.
Yeah. Which definitely is real. And also, something you and I realized we've never talked about at the beginning of the podcast, but we have to kind of toot our horn a little bit.
Yeah.
We were recently named by Richmond Magazine as the best local podcast of 2020. So
Yeah.
we're very proud of that, but at the same time, we're trying to find that balance between being proud of it, but not like saying it too much. So I think we've waited long enough to say that out loud, and also to say thank you to everyone who voted for us and supported us. We greatly appreciate it.
But yeah, we've gotten a lot of good virtual pats on the backs, and thank you everyone. It's fun to be number one. And last year we were very proud to be number 2 last year as well. But all right, well, yeah, I can't wait to talk to Moxie. She's a very interesting person, and we'll see what she knows about.
And to intrigue all our listeners, I actually have known Moxie for a long time, so a little bit of mystery to leave towards the end of the show. But before we get that, we have a lot of other stuff to go through.
What are we doing tonight,
So
Steve?
tonight we're going to focus on one single word: hysteria.
Nice.
So before we get into that, I feel like I need to take you and our listeners on a journey before our journey.
Yes.
Pre-journey. A journey to a journey. Sounds like a lost Lord of the Rings book.
Yeah.
And maybe we know why, as I keep saying that out loud.
Why it's lost.
Yeah. So the journey to where we are tonight. So originally, I wanted to do an episode around 2 very interesting words: hysteria and pyromania.
Now I'm seeing a theme for sure come out.
So obviously, both are Def Leppard album titles. So there you go.
Right.
Love some Def Leppard. By the way.
Which, by the way.
Please.
You said Journey 6 times. I saw Def Leppard and Journey play together a couple summers ago with our friend, with Nereo, and our boy Anthony was there.
Yeah.
So, just interesting
Very
that you said
good. It is.
Journey and Def Leppard in the same.
Maybe I was trying to draw that memory out from you. There's a chance. We'll see. And we'll talk about repressed memories a little bit later.
Oh,
we'll get some Freud time too.
Bamboozled me there. That was good. It worked.
So as much as I love Def Leppard, just to be clear, I don't want anyone to hold on for me to have a occasion to do the etymology of adrenalize. But today we're going to focus on hysteria. So as I mentioned, originally I was going to do hysteria and pyromania. But as I got into all the details regarding hysteria, I was very surprised by what I covered. And again, we will do pyromania in a future episode. For instance, pyromania fact. Did you know that you've ever heard of David Berkowitz?
Yes,
the son of Sam.
Yeah.
So known for being a serial killer.
Right.
He kind of excelled at that. Did you know that he also set over 1,400 fires?
Really?
He was like the worst Swiss Army knife ever. Like, who knows what else he's good at. But anyway, I like both of these words for their history and their salacious details. And they also paired off well by gender. Hysteria kind of associated with ladies and pyromania for guys. Hashtag diversity. And also, again, very good Def Leppard albums, unlike Adrenalize. So don't forget about that. But as I started going into hysteria, I was very surprised about what I uncovered. I found out that the common wisdom or history that we all seem to know kind of offhand is mostly folk etymology and total BS.
I just want to say, I can't believe that you're getting a whole show out of one word. We've never done that before.
Yeah.
And that it's hysteria.
Yeah.
So...
Hey, good enough for Def Leppard. It's good enough for us.
Well, yeah, but I have no idea what the folk etymology might be, or.
Well, you're going to learn.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I'm going to do some debunking, then obviously going to do some bunking with that. So as I kept going, digging through the history, going on my journey, I found a new hero of etymology.
Ah.
A woman who received her PhD with a thesis on menstruation in ancient Greece. Not a joke. You will learn more about her as we go on. New hero.
This really took a turn because I'm thinking, where's hysteria going to go? And
you don't. That's
we're going on a journey.
That's why it's one word.
Okay.
That we're doing today. So in summary of the origin, hysteria has been used over the years to cover a plethora of maladies, mostly associated with the ladies. So during our journey, we're going to hear about Egyptians. We're going to hear about Greeks. We're going to hear about wandering wombs.
Wow.
We're also going to hear about, how to put this, we are a PG podcast.
Yeah.
So we're going to discuss maybe machines that vibrate. Or as my friend Prince would say, body massager. So there will be some good
It's amazing.
There will be some good salacious material in there. Maybe not as good as Son of Sam setting things on fire when he's not murdering people.
Right.
But pretty good. So lots of debunking coming up, but I almost promised to do some bunking. And if you're here just for details about body massager, they'll be here also. We'll have that too.
So, quick question about Son of Sam before we go any further.
Yes.
The dog supposedly telling Berkowitz. Yeah. I just heard the other day, and I wish I could remember the comedian. And I think it was Greg Fitzsimmons.
Okay.
And he goes, I always knew it was crap because if a dog could talk to you, he would just tell you to go get more food. He's not really that interested in telling you to go set things on fire or kill people. So anyway, I never really bought it either, but that really put a fine point on it. So,
yeah. But again, David Berkowitz, the gift that keeps on giving, it sounds like.
Like you said, what can he do?
So before we get too far, let's go to another dictionary friend, Merriam-Webster.
Uh-huh.
I've been a Cambridge dictionary fan a lot this year, but again, #diversity. And by the way, too, as we go through Hysteria, I do have something, I want this to be gender balanced. So we will also discuss maybe the male version of Hysteria. So
yeah, I'm fascinated to hear what Hysteria even has to do with women, and I think that's what we're going to...
Well, you're going to find out. Yeah. So from Merriam-Webster, Hysteria is a noun, and they give two definitions. The first one is a psychoneurosis marked by emotional excitability and disturbances of the psychogenic, sensory, vasomotor, and visceral functions. So that's to be honest with you, that's a really awful definition because I have like 7 other definitions. So I'm going to give you number 2 that I still think gets that.
Yeah. Behavior
exhibiting overwhelming or unmanageable fear or emotional excess.
Okay. See, the problem I have is that Hysteria came out, I don't know what year it came out, but it was...
87.
Thank you. I was 9 years old, and I remember, is Love Bites on Hysteria?
Yes.
Okay. I have a distinct memory of being a 9-year-old, and at the church that we went to in Ohio, I think we've talked on our personal records about how we went through a phase, or maybe our parents did, or the churches, where you get rid of all your music, your non-Christian music, your secular music, as we called it.
Yes.
And in the parking lot, they had done that apparently like at the youth group the night before, and there was this broken cassette in the parking lot. And I just remember the shattered cassette and me picking it up, and I sing Hysteria, and I remember seeing Love Bites. And as a 9-year-old, your mind's racing. What is that? It must be something so evil. Love Bites. It's about some sort of, awful thing that people do. But the word hysteria has been so tied to Def Leppard.
Yeah.
That it's like, honestly, I would have believed it if you just said, oh, Def Leppard created that word. Yeah. There was no word.
They created a lot of good stuff.
So it's hard for me to even put my head in the frame of knowing that there's a history behind this.
Yeah. Well, let's see what we could do. So when you saw that tape, you saw the shattered remains of that cassette tape. Maybe you had some symptoms of hysteria. So let me read some symptoms of hysteria to you. So examples of symptoms include shortness of breath.
Definitely have that.
Anxiety.
Always.
Fainting. Nervousness.
Yes.
Insomnia. Sexual forwardness.
Sometimes.
Sexual frigidity. Irritability.
Oh, yeah.
Agitation.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's interesting about hysteria, which, by the way, is no longer an official disorder, is it can mean anything.
So is it an actual diagnosis?
You can be sexually forward and feigning at the same time.
Yeah, it's like one of those. It's like one of those commercials for medicine that has all the side effects. It just lists everything. It's pretty much a catch-all.
Or it could be like me every time I go on WebMD. When I don't care what I read, I'm pretty sure that I have it. Yeah, my wife's had to talk me out of having menopause multiple times in my life.
Right.
But maybe we'll see some more.
Gosh, I just want to hear Prince again.
I mean, Prince saying, "Body massager, please."
Yeah, that's my new favorite thing.
It is pretty.
It's the best thing I've ever heard. He was under the he was in the throes of hysteria right there.
Yeah, I think that we could all agree that sexual forwardness, maybe he did have that, but we'll get into more of that later. So the first resource we're going to refer to is an article entitled, "What is Hysteria? The Past and Present from a website, verywellmind.com. So one of the things I like about verywellmind.com is they have an article by an author and also have it noted that it's medically reviewed.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's nice.
It is nice.
And also that comment is a little bit nice, as ironically I'm going to talk about some things they have in here are wrong, but they're not the only people. But again, that's why I have a
You're
new
about
hero.
to debunk doctors.
A little bit, but I've been doing that for a while, but it's okay.
So what did they have to say about hysteria?
Sure. So according to Very Well Mind, the term hysteria is thought to have originated from the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates, who associated these symptoms with the movement of a woman's uterus throughout different locations in the body.
Wow.
Ancient thinkers believed that a woman's uterus could travel freely through different areas of the body, often resulting in different symptoms and ailments upon its travels.
So wait a minute, it's like inner space with Martin Short and the little thing just moving throughout the body?
A little bit.
Okay. No, it's actually Dennis Quaid moving around Martin Short's body.
It could be. That maybe I thought we would have to wait for Pyromania for a sequel, but maybe this could be, there could be a Hysteria 2 that comes out of this. The term hysteria stems from the Greek hysteria, which means uterus.
Oh, really?
However, that's not exactly true. So a lot of this article here has some things that are a good lie has a little bit of truth in it. So we're going to explore some of those things. So this gives me a chance to introduce the hero, I think, of this story, Professor Helen King. The first resource we're going to review is a book entitled Hysteria Beyond Freud from 1993, written by various professors. One of them, professor or doctor. I'm going to go with doctor. I like her a lot.
Yeah.
She has a doctorate, Dr. Helen King. So, found a couple bios on Dr. Helen King. She gained her doctorate at University College London in the subject of ancient history and social anthropology. Her PhD was based on menstruation in ancient Greece.
Yeah, that's pretty specialized.
To be
but
honest,
it's a big deal if you think about it. I mean,
but I didn't believe that, to be honest, the first time I read it.
It's like something fake somebody would say what they got their degree in.
It was something that's, a lie that's so big that no one will check it.
Well, and there's no follow-up questions either. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's certain things you can just throw out there and nobody goes, okay, they just, it's moving along.
So, especially as I was doing a lot of debunking, I needed to double check on that. So I found an entry on Dr. Helen King from a website called womenalsoknowhistory.com. And it's her individual page. I'm going to quote from it. And this is a quote. From my PhD on ancient menstruation, parentheses. Yes, that's what I said. Parentheses. She wrote that. I'm not putting the parentheses in there. She said, from my PhD on ancient menstruation. Yes, that's what I said.
I feel like I want to hear Prince just say, please, right now.
Or at least say,
body massager.
So, from Dr. Helen King's entry in Hysteria Beyond Freud.
Can I just real quick, though?
Please.
Not to call you out, but you said, hey, she's debunking this peer-reviewed, doctor article. I think they have a better name for that.
Yeah.
But you said, I'm going to check her out, make sure she's got her bona fides. And you went to her website.
No, I went to womenalsoknowhistory.com.
Oh, yes. And you said her page. I thought you meant that's her.
No, listen, we're talking debunking.
Well, good. I want the listeners to make sure, that you went to a legit website, not her website. I got you. Okay.
So on her entry, Once Upon a Text, Hysteria from Hippocrates, Dr. King kind of debunks some common knowledge and common folk wisdom regarding hysteria. Starting with the idea that hysteria actually came from Hippocrates himself. So she noted that a lot of what is kind of common folk etymology started with a book on the history of hysteria, published in 1965 by a late professor named Ilse Veith. One of the things that she noted in there was that Hippocrates wrote the connection of uterus, and uterus mean hysteria, using it in its 35th aphorism, which reads, when a woman suffers from hysteria. So I'm actually going to go to another article that Dr. King had on this subject, where she states the problem with all of this is the fact that the noun hysteria doesn't exist in the Hippocratic text. What you instead get is the adjective hysterikos, which means coming from the womb. So for the ancient Greeks, it doesn't have the sort of psychiatric overtone, which hysterical has now. And also, too, she states that Hippocrates never wrote the 35th. There's no such thing as it.
So, okay, if I can sort of make sure I'm understanding this, and you tell me if I'm
sure.
right. So, basically, there's a folk etymology out there that Hippocrates coined the term hysteria,
Correct.
And he got it because the uterus was moving around the woman's body like...
now, we're going to talk some more about wandering wombs.
But
you're getting there.
Yeah, so, but now our new our new etymology hero... Helen King is saying not only is that word not correct,
right? He never wrote it.
He never even wrote this thing. Okay,
but as I mentioned, that there is some truth to this. Yeah. So there was something called womb wandering. So as Dr. King explained,
I think it's called Tinder. No, sorry, that's gross.
That's really gross. So she states that the Greeks did see the womb as a cause of all diseases in women, and I'm paraphrasing pretty heavily from her on her discussion on abcnet.edu.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
On wandering wombs and animal spirits. That the womb was seen as a problem for everything. There is actually one Hippocratic text that she quotes that says, one called Places in Man. And you see from that the womb is the problem, because the womb in the Greeks' view was very spongy and needed fluid. Oh. So it would travel throughout the body to basically find where moisture was. And then when it would get there, if it went to your liver, mess your liver up.
Did they just make things up?
I think they did.
And by the way, I'm the last person to call out, always call misogyny on stuff. But like, this is pretty misogynist, right? Like, come on. Like, the womb is the cause of every health issue because it's going around looking for moisture in the body. Yeah. Like, holy crap.
But it's
I'm not surprised that this has been debunked.
Yeah. So she also, a direct quote is, the ancient Greek woman is seen as wet and spongy in a way that sort of are dry and firm. So I think you do get it. I don't know if misogyny is the thing, but definitely, some sort of, there is some sexism.
Something that, I guess maybe that's the right word for it, but it's feels like we don't know how to treat this, so we're going to make some weird story that makes it sound like the womb is Dennis Quaid in Inner Space.
Yeah, but that's a good idea. I mean, that they remake a lot of movies from, like how they kind of do like a gender flip. There we go. Meg Ryan's driving around in a womb.
We need somebody who would be like the current person to do that. I think Jennifer Lawrence is probably too. We need somebody that's in one of those big, science fiction movies that I don't watch. I guess that is Jennifer Lawrence. So
yeah. So to kind of sum up Dr. King's initial appearance here, a lot of the common knowledge from Ilse Veith that hysteria was originated from Hippocrates, that the means of the womb comes directly, or means uterus comes directly from that, is all a bunch of mumbo jumbo. What is true is the mumbo jumbo, they actually believe that the womb wandered through the body and could affect women by the different places that it traveled.
So that's the seed of truth you're talking about. They did believe that. Okay.
Yeah. And she also notes, too, in another article, when wombs wandered, she cautions it's important not to conflate ancient Greek and Roman diagnoses with modern hysteria diagnosis of the 19th century. And she says, I'm not even sure I'd go so far as to call it wandering womb syndrome. To assume corresponds to a 19th century doctor what meant by hysteria is too far to take. So they're on two totally different things by this point.
Just throw it out now, because it's not, and it does sound like, too, it was a catch-all for anything that was wrong.
Anything went wrong with the lady. It's the obvious thing is her womb is going for laps around her body.
Well, and then, the sexism thing also is the fact that hysterical, that term, has been, obviously hysteria is the root of that.
Yeah.
But it's something that I think has been used in more common times as like a way to say, oh, this woman's hysterical. It's kind of a way to degrade a little bit.
It is very dismissive and degrading. And you're like, you know what? I'm not going to listen to her. Obviously, her womb has gone to another part of her body, which would be kind of fun to be a fly on the wall to see that declared to somebody. But again, and we'll talk more about what the modern diagnosis of hysteria is. So Dr. King will be back.
Good.
We're going to see Dr. Helen King again. But we're going to skip ahead a few centuries. As I mentioned, her initial book that we were referring to was Hysteria Beyond Freud. So what about good old Sigmund? So we're going to talk a little bit about Sigmund Freud, but frankly, not too much. I'm going to talk about someone that was actually one of his teachers. So I'm one of these guys that thinks Freud gets way too much attention, but we got to acknowledge his creepy self was there. So I kind of put Freud up there with like guys like with Karl Marx and whoever greenlighted the Kardashians. If people have just kind of put bad ideas out into public.
It's been said many times.
Yeah.
Karl Marx, the Kardashians, and Sigmund Freud.
Yeah. So Freud, one of his books was The Etiology of Hysteria. And this paper explains how Freud believes his female patient's neurosis, which he labels hysteria, resulted from sexual abuse as children. He named the concept of physical symptoms resulting from childhood trauma, hysterical conversion. So kind of typical Freud stuff, mommy and daddy issues, and weird sex stuff. And by the way, as I was looking through this, I came across an article from LiveScience.com entitled, "Was Freud Right About Anything?" And the subtitle was "Spoiler, Not Really." So I don't know why. I didn't really realize how much I didn't like Sigmund Freud till I got to this. But he's been addressed, and we're going to move on from him. But we are going to discuss...
I liked his look, though, by the way. Well, I picture him with his corduroys and like a cardigan sweater or something. It's kind of timeless.
It is a look. And he kind of, he does have that look of someone who goes, so tell me, let's discuss how you really want to have sex with your mother.
Yeah, but he is just creepy, and I love that he's wrong. It makes it even better.
It does.
So I'm sorry. Please proceed.
So we're going to talk about someone else that was wrong, but someone I actually feel like I like a little bit. Jean-Martin Charcot. So this is from his entry, his biography on PBS.org. Jean-Martin Charcot was born in Paris, France, late in 1825. Although he was a 19th century scientist, his influence carried onto the next century, especially in the work of some of his well-known students, which unfortunately included Freud. Charcot took interest in a malady then called hysteria. It seemed to be a mental disorder with physical manifestations of immediate interest to a neurologist. He believed that hysteria was the result of a weak neurological system, which was hereditary.
That seems to be getting a little more to some truth there, maybe.
Close.
Right? Yeah.
But to study the hysterics under his care, he learned the technique of hypnosis and so became a master of the relatively new science, which is in quotes.
Yeah, it takes a weird... I was kind of with it for a second because I was thinking, he's going into... Because he's a neurologist, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking he's going to be looking into like the chemical effect on the brain. This guy jumped right to hypnosis.
It could be. We didn't jump right to it, but he got there. But the last line I'll quote here from PBS.org's biography of him is, he would hypnotize patients for groups of students and others, gaining the nickname the Napoleon of the Neuroses.
That's not a nickname.
That's an awful nickname. No one wants that. So I'm going to discuss the career of Jean-Martin Charcot. And I'm going to refer to an article, In Search of Hysteria, the man who thought he could define madness. And in this article, and a lot of articles, if you do some Google time on hysteria, you'll come across not just a picture, a painting entitled A Clinical Lesson at the Salpêtrière. And there's no way I said that right, but we're just going to call it a clinical lesson for now. Okay. So in this painting, which you will see quite often, there is a room full of medical students. And in front of the room is a very, very intelligent-looking professor-type man. Not standing next to the professor-type, but leaning over is a hysterical woman who's passed out. Oh. So that man is Jean-Martin Charcot.
Okay.
And that woman, who we will learn about just in a moment, little spoiler alert, was known as the Queen of the Hysterics.
Oh, wow. So we got the Napoleon of neuroses and the Queen of Hysterics.
Yep.
Okay.
So in 1878, and again coming back, paraphrasing from the article In Search of Hysteria, Jean-Martin Charcot rejected the idea of a purely psychological basis for all forms of hysteria. even if he couldn't find any anatomical basis for his conclusions, he was still, that's what he thought. So he decided, one of the reasons he wanted to make a little bit more of a medical version or diagnosis of hysteria was that he wanted good evidence to kind of demystify the idea of certain phenomena touted by churches as miracles. He wanted neurological explanations for people having visions or miracle cures, which in a way I could see is almost on the spectrum of hysteria, which, as we discussed, can go from anxiety to sexual forwardness.
Everything's on the spectrum of hysteria. It sounds like, but your point is well taken, and it sounds like this is the man of science versus man of faith sort of thing, and he's gonna show the scientific, which is actually it probably was a good motor for him to try to figure this stuff out.
His intentions were good, but a lot like his student Freud, who I believe in the Life Science article is described as someone who would pick an idea and then back his way into justifying it. Jean-Martin Charcot did a little bit of that, and he used hypnosis. Okay. So this is where we enter the Queen of Hysteria, Marie Whitman, also known as Blanche. So we're seeing some nicknames of varying degrees here. I think Blanche is a good nickname, just off the cuff.
Blanche is just a golden girl, man. When I hear Blanche, I think of Blanche Devereaux. Yeah.
But the Napoleon of Neurosis. And again, I'm not sure how often if he had any say in that, or that, someone he owed money afterwards, after he was dead, named him that. But we'll get to that in a moment here. So
nobody wants to be called Napoleon, I think is a universal truth. Except maybe Napoleon did.
I don't know. He was a winner. I don't think he gets enough credit for running through Europe for a few years as he did.
Yeah, no, I not even just. I think most it's because it's associated with the Napoleon complex, which
I definitely have. So to learn a little bit more about the Queen of Hysterics, I'm going to refer to a book, Medical Muses: Hysteria in 19th Century Paris, by Ashti Hustvedt, which again I did not say correct.
Nobody's going to call you out.
Good. I hope not. Marie Whitman, a poor, illiterate 18-year-old girl, secured a job as a nursing assistant at the same hospital that Jean-Martin Charcot worked at. She had a pretty tough life. Her mother and 5 of her 8 siblings had already died. Her father had been institutionalized. This is a direct quote. The furrier she was apprenticed to had sexually assaulted her. She was beset by incontinence, muteness, paralysis, and convulsions. Pretty tough life, regardless. But when she met Jean-Martin Charcot, he saw something in her. He saw a lot of hysteria, the hallmarks of hysteria, as far as he had put together. He was more of a neurological guy than sexual. So he was a little bit of a switch from the supposed, I'll actually quote from here, a switch from the Hippocratic notion of the womb, which again is incorrect. Thank you, Dr. Helen King, but we'll correct these guys later.
Right.
So he started treating her exclusively with hypnosis, and the results turned her into a star known as Blanche, Queen of Hysterics.
Okay.
Up to the point that she was hypnotized, her behavior had been intolerable and uncontrollable. So Charcot's assistants had diagnosed her with epilepsy, but he didn't care for that. So he again, I think, wanted to make something. He had a solution, and that was hypnosis. So Charcot's treatment of her, which was done in front of a crowd, as noted in that painting.
That's when you know you're getting good medical attention, by the way, if it's done in front of a crowd.
Yeah. So going back to our article, In Search of Hysteria, the performances that would happen with the hypnotized Blanche would have a couple stages that would happen. First, she would have fallen to the maintenance of unnatural postures. So she would have to be supported and then moved around. Her fist would be bent awkwardly. That she's not just swooning, she's in some sort of thing.
So can I ask, is she under hypnosis right now?
She is.
Okay.
So these are the things as they went in there and would, kind of put her in a state to go through her hysteria.
Oh, okay.
Then she would also become cataleptic, which means that she couldn't feel anything. So she could be poked with pins. Nothing would faze her.
I am kind of curious how they found that out.
Yeah.
Like, do they just try it? Like, let's see what happens when we poke you with a pin.
That is very good. And then there would be something they called the somnolonic state.
The
She would be
Chumbawamba phase? What did you just...
like somnambulism, somnambulant state.
That's a new phrase for me. Okay.
So in this trance, her gender could be switched, her personality split in two, paralysis transferred from one side of the body to another.
This is insane.
They would also do things to suggest to her while she was hypnotized that a blank plate held a picture of her naked, and she would grab it and destroy it. Essentially, what started as curing hysteria became a circus performance that he did with her that was somehow an influence on the terrible Sigmund Freud. So as much as this was fascinating and that she became famous as the Queen of Hysterics, it came to an end. And it started when, in 1893, Charcot died suddenly. The second way that kind of, I think, showed that after all her fits of hysteria and how all these things, her hysterical attacks could be monitored and modified by hypnosis, never had anything again. So after Charcot died, she suddenly was a whole lot better without somebody brainwashing her or manipulating or giving her a stage to put a performance on.
Right.
And someone that actually stayed in the hysterical world, a famous dancer by the name of Jane Averill, talked about the other people in the world and called them the stars of hysteria, and described them. Those were deranged girls whose ailments named hysteria consisted, above all, in stimulation of it. How much trouble they used to go to in order to capture attention and gain stardom. So I think Charcot here we see as somebody taking advantage of somebody.
Yeah, he was feeding into an actual condition that she had for...
And maybe starting with the right way of wanting to get stuff done. But
I was rooting for him at first, but...
I was too. And again, he also was a student or a teacher of Freud, so he deserves to be looked poorly upon for that.
Well, the sad thing is that, you said she was also, I guess, sexually abused as a young person, and it's like, that goes right into Freud can take her from there, but hopefully she didn't get any treatment from him after that. She just went and learned to knit or something, or got some actual good treatment.
Well, that didn't happen.
Oh,
so even though she always defended Charcot and actually embraced her name as being the Queen of the Hysterics, she did pass away at age 54 in the year 1913, doing some work that she did. As part of her job, she was involved being exposed to X-rays. So a little bit like Marie Curie passed away unaware of the dangers of radiation. The Queen of Hysterics.
I feel bad for this woman. She had a rough life. You started by naming off everybody that had died and all the stuff that happened to her. Then she gets, paraded out and pricked and prodded and manipulated, and then dies from exposure to radiation. She poor lady.
So to kind of wrap up the story on her, an article, Clinical History of Blanche Whitman, a 2017 study looking at her symptoms concluded that she likely suffered from psychogenic non-epileptic seizures.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to pretend like I know what that means, but basically it's just she actually had epilepsy, right?
Yeah. Or actually it was non-epilepsy. She had a non-epileptic seizures.
Non-epileptic seizures. Okay. Gosh, it's crazy how back then it's like you're trying to explain stuff or figure stuff out, and you have a seizure, and next thing you know, you're a sideshow, and you have a horrible nickname.
So that, I'm sure everyone enjoyed learning about the career of Jean-Martin Charcot. And if you didn't, this is where we get to the sexy part of the story. Ooh. We will discuss something maybe like a body massager, please.
That's a good tease. So, but first...
New slang.
All right, so today's new slang is going to be a term that is not a new term, at least the first part of it is, and that is low-key.
Low-key.
So, low-key, like I said, obviously not a new term. It's a term I've used my whole life, usually as an adjective to describe a person or maybe an event. So dictionary.com defines it as not elaborate, showy, it's modest or restrained.
Okay.
And so low key is something I've always used as, like, I talk about my dad as being low key.
Yeah.
He's laid back. He's low key person.
Not theatrical, not dramatic.
Yeah.
Not going to be a big come in there and set the room on fire in a good way. He's low key. like Son of Sam would. But it's like you say, hey, come on over. It's going to be pretty low key. We're just going to have Chilean board games or something like that. So my friend Alyssa
she would slip it in mid-sentence, and I'd hear her say, low-key this, low-key that. And I'm like, what is she? And I kind of asked her, like, what is this low-key thing? And that's why you really feel like an old person. And she kind of explained it to me that it's like, means it's something maybe you're not. It's like a guilty pleasure almost. If you say, I low-key am a Lana Del Rey fan, you're kind of saying, I don't want it to be known, but
right.
I, of course, after I hear her say it, I start hearing everyone say it. We've talked about before. You hear a term once.
Right.
Next thing you know, it's everywhere. I looked for the origin of this, and it's actually pretty harder to find than you would think. Mental Floss has an article. It's from 2015, and it's called low-key, a word that's low-key snuck into our vocabulary, which is a good way to show how the word works. It's by Gretchen McCullough, and it's back from 2015. So they give a couple examples of how low-key is used now when it comes to slang. But before I get to that, they point out in the Mental Floss article that Urban Dictionary, which comes, it does come up a lot with this because, and we'll talk about this, like, where else do you learn these words? Where else is it documented? And I guess I'll go ahead and talk about this. The Oxford English Dictionary a couple years ago opened up on their website to say, hey, send us your slang, basically. Right. We want young people, any word you have, send it to us and tell us what it means. And probably I didn't find this to be true, but I'm guessing that probably is in response to like Urban Dictionary. Because you kind of are stuck going there sometimes because there aren't better resources always. But there are, and I'll share who they are here in a minute. So in the Mental Floss article, like I said, they pointed out that in 2005, Urban Dictionary's entry was the traditional low key, which we talked about before.
Okay.
But then in 2009, they updated it as an adverb to mean secretly or discreetly or slightly or kinda. So here's a few examples from the Mental Floss article. Finding Nemo is low-key one of my all-time favorite movies. So it's kind of like, you might not know it, but
yeah.
British people are so intolerant of each other, we all low-key want each other dead. Well, that took a really dark turn, which I apologize for, but these are the
examples.
I wish one of my low-key crushes had a low-key crush on me so we could like low-key make out and stuff.
I like the end stuff. That makes it better. And then when you're low-key sad AF, but trying not to care. So these are all actually tweets if you didn't already catch that. But so I couldn't really find much in the way of any etymology for this. After I was hearing low-key for a while, I started to hear, and this was like when I heard this, it made me laugh, which was high-key. High-key.
Right. So if you high-key like something, then you are proud of it. So let me give you some examples I found from our new source for everything, Business Insider.
Yeah, they're on fire this season.
Yeah, so they talk about high key a little bit, and here's some examples they have of high key that they found on Twitter. I'm high key attracted to pizza, which there you go.
Yeah.
Now here's an example where they use both. I low-key am really into that new Demi Lovato song, and high-key hate myself for it. So that's a great example. Something that's low-key is something you're maybe a little shy or embarrassed about. Something that you don't maybe want to admit, while being high-key is something you feel strongly about.
Yeah.
So, it's actually even more nuanced than that, though, because you can use them almost interchangeably in an ironic way, right? Like, you can say you're low-key about something, but truthfully, you really love it. It's just your way of saying it. So, like I said before, I was a little surprised that the articles I was finding weren't newer. Everything was from 2015. I changed up kind of the way I was searching for it. I found an article from 2018, which, if you think about it technically, wasn't that long ago.
Oh, I know.
But it feels like...
Because this year won't end.
Right. It feels like a lifetime ago, right? So this is from Time Magazine, and it's written by Katie Steinmetz, and it's called Why Slang is More Revealing Than You May Realize. It's a good article that I won't really summarize. I'd say check it out. But one of the things I thought was interesting is it had some quotes from Ben Zimmer in it.
Yes.
Yeah, and we like Ben Zimmer.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think, like, low-key we might be friends because we're on email chain with him with Barry Popick, you know.
Wow. Well, friends of Popick.
Yeah.
And by the way, we haven't talked enough about Barry Popick, who is awesome. And I consider him a friend. I hope he considers me a friend.
He probably does.
Good.
In a Lowkey.
And he's awesome. And we need to talk about him more. And he actually, hopefully, will be making another appearance here soon.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So Ben Zimmer sort of points out in this article that slang is really important because it allows, as he says, cultural groups to create their own kind of territory through language. And he talks about low key and high key and how that's a good example of it, where you kind of, I mean, this is just getting more into talking about slang in general, but it's something that you kind of have to have it. Like, we're sitting here explaining it to our audience now. Some of our audience, it knows because they're in that group that uses it. It's not like the etymology of slang is very hard because it means something to a group. It's almost like an inside joke.
Yeah.
And then you try to somehow put that in a
it's lingo.
Dictionary. It's lingo. It's something that so when you look at high key and low key, there's not really a great etymology for it. It's just a way that the word has transformed. So the only like origin that I found of this that it could be is actually comes back to a Drake line from his verse on a Nicki Minaj single from October 14th.
You found a way to make that worse. That's actually impressive.
Yeah, but it came in 2014 and this makes sense, but he used high key, okay?
Okay.
So I actually don't even know what the line is, but apparently it was also used before him by a guy named Styles P, who was doing a feature on a Young Roddy track. And so once again, it comes back to hip hop culture.
Yeah.
But what I like about this one is it started with high key, it looks like. And then people were saying low key sort of as a reaction to that. And that seems to be the origin. So, Steve, what do you think about this one?
I actually initially liked it because I like the dichotomy between low key and high key. I don't know if it's like the most eloquent way to express yourself, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
But once there was a 1-2 of Drake and Nicki Minaj, it made me yearn from days of old when Doja Cat was more of a concern to me. So I'm going to give it a thumbs down.
Okay, fair. So I'll tell you that I actually like this one. I really like the low key and high key thing, but I like them in the sense that when I hear them, they don't make me mad. I understand what the person's trying to say, and it kind of makes me laugh. Now, the next question, could I ever pull off using it? No. I can't use that. I can't, put that into my lexicon. No. It would not be cute. But I'm a fan. So I'll give it a thumbs up. And that was High Key, our new slang.
So before we get to some of the salacious details and some of the supposed treatments for hysteria, want to give a shout out to the men. So again, originally my idea was to do Hysteria and Pyromania. One is a shout out to Def Leppard, but two, Hysteria for the ladies, Pyromania for the men.
Checks out.
Or things I guess that are associated more female to male.
Right.
So real quick, I did do some research on male hysteria, which frankly wasn't as exciting. A lot of articles referred back to a phenomenon that was noted at the end of or during World War I being shell-shocked as male hysteria. And that, frankly, isn't a lot of fun to discuss.
Not at all.
But I will tell you something that is fun to discuss. Spermatoria.
I wish I'd never heard that word.
Oh, and you'll continue to wish you'd never heard that when I finish reading from an article on theconversation.com. Spermatoria.
Spermatortilla?
Spermatortilla. The lesser-known male version of male hysteria.
Oh.
And that word, what does it mean, you might ask? What is it?
It sounds like the worst possible thing on the Taco Bell menu, and that's saying something.
It might be part of the Taco Bell menu. So what is this medical condition? The male version of hysteria? It is a, quote, excessive and involuntary discharge of semen.
I knew it.
Yeah, and I will try to include the picture of a gentleman's face who is used in this article. So basically it was you would fire off some rounds, but it wasn't as satisfying as it would be normally. It just kind of happened to you.
That's never happened to me.
Yeah. So
ever.
I think, we talked about the Queen of Hysterics being fun to have at a party. You know,
This guy.
this guy not so much. So anyway, so ladies, again, we want to be gender balanced. Pyromania will be a future episode, and I will say we will leave this topic alone for now.
Yeah, let's move on to something less gross, and
potentially.
I'm hoping we get back to Dr. King at some point.
Oh, we're going to get back to Dr. King, and more importantly, we're going to get to body massager. So, from an article from the Huffington Post, Female Hysteria, 7 crazy things people used to believe about the ladies' disease. Their words, not mine, by the way. Some of the symptoms, or some of the crazy cures, it could be cured by pelvic massage, and I'm quoting here.
Oh, I want to see the doctor that came up with that.
The massaging of a woman's pelvis, i.e. her genitals, was embraced by many a health expert as the cure for female hysteria.
It was Prince, wasn't it?
It was not. And this quotes an article from Psychology Today entitled Hysteria and the Strange History of Body Massagers. Body massager, please! And they cite one resource, which is very important, The Technology of Orgasm, by an author by the name of Rachel Maines.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the other items that is noted is a good hosing. High-pressure showers or hoses being used to treat hysteria by directing them maybe at certain areas. This also points back to Rachel Maines. Finally, and what everyone's been waiting for, which is probably the biggest urban myth, is that body massager were a very frequent and often used remedy for this, and also helped contribute to their popularity.
Interesting.
And this is a myth of folk etymology that has held on.
Oh, it's not true.
Very much correct. And I will tell you why it's not true by going to an article in The Atlantic, Victorian Era Orgasms and the Crisis of Peer Review. That's a title, by the way.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, and the subtitle is A Favorite Anecdote About the Origins of the Vibrator. Probably a myth.
I just want to spitball in here.
Mm-hmm.
I may get nominated for some sort of Nobel Prize for this, but couldn't you just get the hysterical woman together with sperma tortilla guy? I mean, oh no, it's folk etymology though.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be a scene though. Maybe that's what
I feel like they would cancel each other out in a weird way.
Charcot was missing in his thing.
Yeah.
So they discuss how, and I'm paraphrasing heavily from this article, it's one of the most delectably scandalous stories in the history of medicine. At the height of the Victorian era, doctors regularly treated their female patients by stimulating them to orgasm. They talk about how it started a Tony-nominated play, a rom-com starring Maggie Gyllenhaal, even its own brand of body massage. However, there is no evidence for this. According to a paper, A Failure of Academic Quality Control, The Technology of Orgasm. So in this paper by 2 historians at Georgia Tech, say manual massage of female genitals was never a routine treatment of hysteria. And so if that wasn't enough, somebody else is going to show up in this story. And you could probably guess it, Dr. Helen King.
Yes.
So according to Dr. King, Maine's deliberately skewed translations of ancient texts. As we discussed also, she initially called out how Hippocrates was never really said some things. Basically says that she played fast and loose with the secondary material. And my favorite quote at the end here is from Dr. King. People wanted to hear the story. Vibrators' stories sell.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Just like folk etymology sells. So it's sort of the perfect combination.
So if you are doing some researching on the origins of hysteria, Rachel Maine's book is referred to a lot and is pretty much debunked to the point that if you go to Wikipedia, and this book is mentioned, Wikipedia even comes out to discuss how this is a debunked idea, and this book is debunked.
I love that our new hero, Dr. King, has like double-barreled debunked.
Yeah.
It's not just, she debunked a lot in this thing, man.
So, hysteria today. Is hysteria still around?
Yeah. Is there even actually a diagnosis of hysteria, or is that whole thing fake?
So going back to our friends at Very Well Mind, in 1980, the APA, American Psychological Association, changed their diagnosis of hysterical neurosis to that of conversion disorder. So things that were normally grouped under hysteria are now known as conversion disorder. It is a relatively rare mental illness with 2 to 5 out of 100,000 people suffering from it.
Oh, wow.
It is listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the 5th version. Some of the symptoms are kind of with the classic hysterical symptoms, disturbances in coordination, faintness, things that, you can kind of see the Victorian hysterical woman falling, losing her balance and coming over. And in conclusion, the number one risk factor in having this, though, is being female. And this is according to verywellmind.com. So I thought that was maybe not funny, but interesting that there was, as much as all this stuff was
comes
nuts,
back to.
Yeah, it still comes back to people picking on the ladies.
And this is the APA that's saying this?
Yeah, well, this is from, yes.
It's from that article, but it's the source.
Yeah, it's from verywellmind.com, who also has a doctor on this, even though we pointed out a couple things that they've got wrong. So hysteria is something that there's a lot of folk etymology about. Start basically an excuse to blame reactions on women from things from wandering wombs to being hypnotized to cure it, to also false etymology about using a body massager to cure it.
Yeah.
But not really much. If you don't go past your initial Google results, you're going to get stuck in folk etymology.
Wow.
And when in doubt, go look out my new hero, Professor Helen King.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
This is good, man. And I can totally understand why you didn't want to have a second topic in this, because this was enough for one. I feel like I've learned a lot. Some new characters, like, Napoleon of Neuroses. We had the Queen of Hysteria, Dr. King.
Yeah. We learned that someone got their PhD on ancient menstruation.
Yeah. And it's for real. She's not kidding. I don't know if we should bring any of this up with our next guest, Moxie. We'll see how that goes. But coming up, we have Know Your Onions with Moxie LaBouche.
This is Robert Bankett, host of True Facts with Robert Bankett. True fact, Aconcagua, at 22,837 feet, is the largest mountain in South America. Also, if I had the opportunity to beat T. Hollis Mellencamp to death with a bag of doorknobs, I would do it.
Our guest today is Moxie LaBouche, host of Your Brain on Facts podcast. Your Brain on Facts is a half-hour podcast of things you didn't know, things you thought you knew, and things you never knew you never knew. Moxie's also the author of Your Brain on Facts, things you didn't know, things you thought you knew, and things you never knew, which is full of trivia, quizzes, and fun facts. It's available today at bookshop.org, which supports independent bookstores, or Amazon as well. Moxie, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So we're going to get into our game, but I thought we'd start just by getting to know a little bit about Your Brain on Facts. What was it that was the impetus for the book, the podcast?
Well, I've always had a curious mind, and I am like a dragon atop its hoard when it comes to factoids. I must have them all. I must have all of the interesting little facts. And the thing is, you can apparently only fit so many of them in one human skull. So they just fall out sometimes. Some circumstances are not ideal for interjecting bonus facts. Like I'll be scanning customers at the grocery store, and they may not necessarily want to hear in that exact moment about the fact that avocados have large pits because the seeds used to be redistributed by a prehistoric ground sloth. They just want me to ring up the damn avocado and let them leave. So I thought, a podcast, after my husband finally, he had to get me like in the car where I couldn't possibly leave or refuse before I listened to a podcast. Then I could do this podcast thing, and I could put all my facts there. The problem is in researching each episode to write a 7 or 8 page script, it just puts more stuff into my brain.
Right. So, but that's the good thing is,
Well, it would be, except I
Yeah.
have profound memory issues because I'm blonde. I'm going through menopause, and I've been struck by lightning, which is the unofficial trifecta of not knowing where you left your keys. So it's like people who are bad at telling jokes where they get halfway through the joke and then they stop like, oh, wait a minute, because they're not sure how it ended or if they set it up correctly. That's me, but with facts. I'll be like, oh, God, what was the name of that French aristocrat? Wait, was he even French? Oh, was he even an aristocrat? You know what? I'll look it up and I'll just text you later, okay?
Well, and you also seem like the type of person that probably, I was going to say, you could probably make half of these facts up and people wouldn't know the difference, but I think you have more integrity than that.
A little bit. Though I do have, when I'll give a fact and someone is incredulous or just in awe, I'll be like, it was bizarre, nobody asked, and I said it. That's your 3-point test for the veracity of this information.
And if people ever really push back on you too, you got that lightning card to play. That's a good one. I would be on that. Like, the trash didn't go down tonight. I was like, well,
sorry. Oh, sorry. I got struck by lightning.
I did get struck by lightning.
I milked that for the first year. I milked that, and I do still whip it out as needed because people expect less from you after you tell them that you've had your brain fried by lightning. But the thing is, if someone comes back and being like, well, no, X, Y, and Z, and I'll be like, great, because I don't mind being corrected. I like being corrected because it means that I am learning. Or if I'm starting to tell a fact and somebody else has something to add to it, that will make my entire day. I even get excited if somebody starts telling me a fact I already know because I'm just so happy that we're doing this thing.
I couldn't agree more. I actually had this conversation with somebody yesterday where I said, I don't say losing arguments, but I kind of do, because if you can convince me of something that is based in some sort of logic and fact, it makes me very happy because I've learned something. So now I do have to follow up. Can you, how did you get struck by lightning? I mean, is there a juicy story to that? Were you like running through the forest? I'm thinking of some movie scene from, I think, The Great Outdoors or something. Or is it something you'd rather not talk about?
Oh, that was a classic, The Great Outdoors. Yeah. I'm glad you were picturing that and not the end of Powder. For those persons of a certain age who remember that film. What is it like? It seemed to have no cultural impact, and yet we all watched it once.
That is a good point.
Everybody,
like you watched it very quickly, and it like went away.
Yeah, everybody who was a teenager in the 90s watched Powder once, and it was seared into our brains. But no, I used to raise goats, and I made goat milk soap and skincare products that I sold at craft shows and online. That's how I made my living. And there was a hellacious summer storm. And one of my goats wouldn't come out of the barn because she was waiting for me to turn off the sky water before she would cooperate. And so I'm standing there with my hand on the fence yelling at a goat named Cyanide when the loudest crack I ever heard sounded above my head. And as I was falling into the mud, I had 3 distinct thoughts in an instant, in that way that your brain can slow down in these traumatic moments. Stupid electric fence. I haven't plugged that in a month. I think I've just been struck by lightning. And I'm like, you know what, Cyan, you can just get mastitis. I don't care anymore. I'm going inside till it stops raining because I couldn't move my hand, the one that was on the fence. That came back after about 15 minutes. But as I was approaching the house, I see light on in the laundry room, which is the room you enter through the back door. I'm like, my husband at the time, why does he always leave that light on? Why is it orange and wavy? Oh, good. The house is on fire again. Yes, I said again.
Again. Okay.
At least this time we know for sure what caused it. The first one, which happened the week before Christmas, because somebody's got to get burned out of their house the week before Christmas, and that year it was us, we believe was started by a 15-year-old Himalayan cat who decided that she wanted to be where the oil lamp was. So the oil lamp had to go, in this case, onto the carpet.
Wow.
And then just trotted back to the other end of the house like nothing was wrong.
Yeah.
Well, for a minute, I thought you were going to say the cat was, last time we spoke, Catadoxa came up and Raining Cats and Dogs, and I thought maybe the cat pulled down the lightning, and burnt down the house. But
If you ask a friend of mine, the chickens caused the lightning. I forget what his logic was, but there's something about me having chickens that makes my house more flammable. I'll get with him and get the exact reasoning. I'm sure I angered some chicken god. I mean, though the raccoon god should be protecting me, considering that's what happens to all my chickens every fall, is they get eaten by raccoons. They'll be fine until the raccoons eat that first one and realize these stupid things are full of meat. And then they'll be gone within a week. So, we sort of just hold them for the raccoons, for the spring and summer. But I'll get with my friend and find out why it is that chickens make me get struck by lightning.
Yeah. And if there's a deity associated with raccoons, it's more underground than in the sky, I'd say. We don't have time for me to raccoon rant. When you do your sequel book, I'll help you with your animal section of True Facts.
Hell yeah.
I'll be there for you.
I don't know. Raccoons are arboreal. You don't have to be all the way up in the sky to reach the lightning.
No, I meant just they're from the devil. It was more of what I was getting at, but okay.
That's why they have creepy little people hands. Because I had occasion to rescue 4 baby ones from inside a wall. They'd fallen from the attic straight down to the first floor because we have an old balloon frame, 150-year-old house, and so I had to cut a hole in the drywall. And thank God it was drywall at that point and not plaster and lath, or little bastards would have just died in there. And then 4, like some crappy redneck magic trick, there's 4 baby raccoons coming out of the wall. And they were like kittens with people hands. And I was sorely tempted to try to raise a raccoon, but decided, probably the only smart move I made that year, decided against it.
Well, Moxie, on that note, something that is, I know, terrifying to Steve, when you talk about baby raccoons and maybe a little bit one of our more creepy animal friends. I'm sorry, not friends to Steve, but he has a big problem with raccoons. We're coming up on Halloween, and so we're going to have a couple of Halloween related idioms that we're going to quiz you on. So if you're ready, we're going to go ahead and do our game, Know Your Onions.
Ready since first call.
All right, well, let's do it. So here we go. The first question today, question 1. Which is the correct origin of the phrase devil's advocate? Is it A, the devil's advocate is a term from Milton's Paradise Lost. Beelzebub is frequently mentioned with various names, including Satan's consigliere, the infernal solicitor general, and of course the devil's advocate.
I need to have new business cards printed stat.
Anything with consigliere in it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Is it B, the advocatus diaboli, which is Latin for devil's advocate, is a former official position within the Catholic Church, the promoter of the faith, one who argued against the canonization or sainthood of a candidate in order to uncover any character flaws or misrepresentation of the evidence favoring canonization? Or is it C, the devil's advocate was a term coined in 1997 in the supernatural thriller of the same name, starring Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino, who definitely didn't overact at all in that one. So, to summarize, is it from Paradise Lost along with the infernal solicitor? Was it an official role in the Catholic Church, or did it come from a Keanu Reeves vehicle from 1997?
What I thought it is very close to one of the answers, because I thought that the devil's advocate was the person who spoke against the candidate for pope, not a candidate for sainthood. But I'm assuming you probably actually looked it up, and we did establish how spotty I am when it comes to memorizing things. But do you know of the cadaver synod?
I do not, but it sounds like
I think we're about to find out.
Oh, you are. And anything that starts with the word cadaver, we're off to a good start. There was a pope who so hated his predecessor, he had his body disinterred, dressed in its vestments, put back in the big shiny chair, and put on trial. And he made one of the bishops, or one of the middle management of Vatican, get crouched down behind the chair and speak for the dead pope.
Whoa!
This was Pope Formosus, but I can never remember if that's the living one or the dead one. That's the dead one. Yeah,
incredible.
Formosus is the. I try to remember like fermenting. Formosus is the dead one. And so then the new pope declared that he was guilty and had his body thrown into the river, which a lot of people didn't really like. And
Yeah.
Pope stuff's crazy. There is an all Pope podcast, Pontifacts, that I got to be on, and I you might not think you're interested in that, but give those gals a listen. You'll find it it's good. Pontifacts. So that's a long way of saying B.
Okay, well, the correct answer is unfortunately not A with the Satan's consigliere. It is B, and you are correct. And once again, you have not only gotten the correct answer, you've enlightened us as well. And what is it again? The cadaver
Synod, SYNOD. Yes, this is my gift. This is my curse.
Yeah. And this is the name of Scott's new metal band that he's going to start next week too.
Absolutely.
You can open for Cannibal Corpse.
Oh yeah.
Bring the kids.
Well, I got to tell you that this stuff is creepy, and that's going to be a great addition to. I'm just trying to think of the dead guy on trial, and I feel like there's got to be some really great puns and jokes there. But unfortunately, I didn't get hit by lightning, but I'm just not quick enough for any sort of joke.
That's what editing is for.
Yeah,
you do that. You can be terribly witty in post.
I really should take advantage of that, because usually after a show, I'm like, oh, I now have a joke. Ding! But okay, well, great job. We're gonna go to the next creepy Know Your Onions question. Question number 2. Which of the following is the true origin of the phrase "come hell or high water"?
Lord willing and the creek don't rise.
Is it A, the origin of the phrase "come hell or high water" goes back to Noah? In the book of Genesis, Noah beseeched his immediate family to join him on the ark, or they would face either hell or high water, possibly both. Is it B, come hell or high water means to be faced with a dilemma that only affords a choice between two unpleasant alternatives? It originated in America in the early 1900s to describe a dispute between copper miners and mining companies in Bisbee, Arizona. The miners demanded better working conditions which the company refused to supply, which left the miners with two unpleasant choices: continue to mine in the same terrible conditions, hell, or face unemployment and poverty, which was the high water. And the phrase came into popular use during the Depression in the 1930s. Or is it C? The term hell or high water comes from America in the latter part of the 19th century and refers to the travails of literally driving cattle through high water and the hell in between. So, to recap, especially with that long second one, is it Noah's Ark, some miners having to choose between hell and high water, or is it driving cattle across the Midwest in some actual high water and the hell in between? What do you think?
It's definitely folksy sounding, and while the biblical origin seems like it would make the most obvious sense, I've watched enough QI to steer away from the obvious answer. No Klexons for me. 2 people got that, but they were thrilled by it. So what is folksier, miners or cowboys? I'm going to... but you brought up the Depression, and that's a really good time to have an expression like that. You know what? I don't have an opinion about football, but I live in Redskin country, so I'm going to go Cowboys.
All right, and the correct answer is C, Cowboys.
Woohoo!
And they were really having to push those cattle through all sorts of terrain, including hell and high water. And the reason B was so tempting for you was that is actually one of the potential and probably folk etymologies of between rock and a hard place.
Ah, yeah, mining would be a good place for that expression to come from.
Exactly. So that was a tougher one, but you are 2 for 2. I could not be more impressed. And I think we're now going to move on to Steve's final question.
Steve's question. So before I get to our final question, I want to remind everyone they can listen to Moxie LaBouche
on her Your Brain on Facts podcast at her website, yourbrainonfacts.com. You can also find her book, Your Brain on Facts, at preferably your local bookseller. And it was bookshop.org, I believe, is the website that works with small businesses.
Bookshop.org.
Yeah, that way you
Bookshop.
get all the convenience of buying online, but you're still supporting your local bookseller.
And I checked, and it's out there. So
Very good. So outside of her podcast, Moxie LaBouche has had a couple different aspects of work and career. She has performed and produced burlesque, including a George R.R. Martin approved burlesque tribute, and even got to play for the man himself. She's also been a goat farmer and soap maker. And through one of these careers, Moxie and I know each other. I'll let everyone's imagination run through and figure out which one it is. So one quick question before I get to my last question. Which smells more interesting? Goats or George R.R. Martin?
Okay, look, you pump the brakes, kid. That man is a national treasure. We're not talking smack about Mr. Martin, okay?
agree.
He's a really nice guy. He's just
Actually,
genuinely, he's kind of quiet
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit awkward, as you might expect from someone who's written, 1,500 pages of fantasy
Right.
story. And stop asking him when the next book is going to be done, and stop asking him what happens if he dies before it's finished, because he's really getting annoyed with that question. It's really rude.
Moxie, have you, before you fully answer his question, if you're a fan of epic fantasy, have you read The Wheel of Time by any chance, Robert Jordan?
We could pretend I have.
Nope. We that's once again the edit button. I mean,
Yeah.
I had to ask. I'm a super fan of. I love all this stuff.
That would have been another 45 minutes of conversation. So it worked out well. Your night would have not ended.
No, it wouldn't have. But anyway, so go on. I'm sorry.
So for our final question for Moxie LaBouche of Your Brain on Facts podcast book and .com, a goat question. In ancient Greek religion and mythology, Pan is the god of the wild, shepherds and flocks, nature, rustic music, and the companion of nymphs. He has the hindquarters, legs, goat, and horns of a goat, in the same manner as a fawn or satyr. Pan is connected to fertility in the season of spring, and also considered by the Greeks to be the god of theatrical criticism. Moxie, for your final question, which of the following mythological stories is associated with Pan, Greek god of theatrical criticism? Is it A, Echo was a wood nymph, perhaps the most gentle, the most kind, and possessed a good and loving heart? She was very musical and had a beautiful voice. Echo lived deep in the woods and rejected all suitors, which made her, of course, a favorite of the goddess Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. Pan spotted Echo one day and fell madly in love, but Echo would have nothing to do with him. This made Pan so angry that he used his powers to panic his shepherds. They went mad and tore Echo to pieces. Pieces of Echo were carried by the wind all over the world. Or is it B? Zamfir was a lonely shepherdess. She was an orphan who found work because she could soothe the sheep with her musical ability. She played the musical instrument associated with Pan, the pan flute, and was considered to be even better than Pan was with the instrument. For many seasons, Pan tried to seduce a young shepherdess, but she would never relent to him due to his awful appearance. Finally, when she rejected Pan's intentions one time too many, he became enraged. He used his powers to entice his followers to take Zamfir and drown her in a vat of feta cheese. Or is it C?
That's not even the goofiest thing about that one.
I know that's what's so crazy about these myths. As we all know, the Greek gods were angry and petty and often feuded with one another. In one myth, Pan and Apollo being the god of music, were engaged in a feud over who made better music. Pan with his pan flute, or Apollo with his harp. This feud became so intense that Apollo colluded with Ares, the god of war, and had Pan killed. When Pan descended to the underworld, he was met by Hades, who made a deal with him. Pan could return to the world of the living, but at a price. After he achieved his vengeance, he would have to return to the realm of death to marry Hades' ugly daughter. Pan agreed to hail. To aid Pan, Hades provided Pan with a magical cane which contained the power to put Apollo to sleep for 1,000 years. After gaining victory over Apollo, what appeared to be Pan returned to the underworld. Pan arrived sleeping at the river Styx. However, after he was transported by Hermes to the underworld, it was found that it was not Pan, but a sleeping Hercules wrapped in goat skin. So Moxie LaBouche is the answer A, Echo, who was torn apart, and her voice was carried by the wind all over the world. Zamfir, the lonely shepherdess who met her end in a vat of feta cheese, or is it the story of Pan and Apollo's feud and the magic cane, which ended up with Hades being tricked and left with an ugly daughter who was not married?
B might have been more convincing if I had not watched the excess of television that I watched in the 1980s. But unfortunately for you, I didn't bother going outside in my childhood. So those persons under the age of 35 don't know what I'm talking about, but everyone of my ilk, probably like Zamfir. Zamfir, what was that? Zamfir was... He played the pan flute, and you could buy his 2-record collection, or, you know, whatever. Visa and MasterCard, no COD. You don't hear that on the commercials anymore. So I'm going to discount B. That, and I think if you're going to drown someone in a vat of something, wine or olive oil would probably be better than cheese.
Well,
or at least the whey from the feta. Like if you have a big vat of whey left over from cheese making. Yeah,
well, that's what you would do if you were a very petty pope that didn't like his predecessor.
Well, my Greek brother-in-law has some stories that might make you change your mind on that, but it's okay. This is your question.
Opa.
Well, then I want to hear about people drowning in feta. I think we're burying the lead here with all these quiz questions. Okay, so then we have Echo or we have Apollo. Now, if I remember anything from any of my Latin classes, it is that Greek and Roman mythology is just one big dick measuring contest. Most of the stories. They're either dick measuring contests or cat fights. So the Pan and Apollo music contest sounds really doable, but then there's like 1 or 2 parts that sound like they were hastily stitched on. But then the Echo story sounds really well constructed, but I thought I remembered a different origin of echoes. But am I thinking of the origin of crickets? Like, crickets is what we should put in the background while I'm thinking.
Wow.
No, crickets is what we'll put in the background when I asked you about Robert Jordan.
Yeah.
Well, I got his work confused with Madeleine L'Engle. Because like A Wrinkle in Time, sounds kind of similar, you know.
Yeah.
Sort of somewhere between A Wrinkle in Time and Gravity's Rainbow.
Oh.
Anyway, that's probably enough stalling. Echo or Apollo? I'm going to assume that I'm remembering 6th grade Latin class wrong, because that seems most likely given the circumstances, and I'm going to go with A.
A, you nailed it.
Yay!
Woo! We have a perfect score.
Assuming I would remember something incorrectly.
Perfect game.
My strategy.
Well, I think all those years of watching the infomercials for Zamfir, the pan flute master, paid off finally. So that's come back to help you. And answer C was basically the plot of Petey Wheatstraw, the Devil's Son-in-Law, set to Greek myth. So perfect game.
Perfect game.
Moxie LaBouche.
Yeah. It's just fun to play.
Well, this has been a blast, and I want to thank you for coming on. As we have said, your brain on facts. There's so much in there, way more than one person can fit in their brain. And if Moxie can't fit into her brain, then neither can you. So please check out her website, yourbrainonfacts.com. Make sure to check out the podcast, and don't forget to get the book as well. Moxie, thank you so much for being here, and great job on a perfect score.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you guys for having me on the show. I would like to extend an offer to your listeners, if I may.
Go ahead.
I also do voiceover work, and that can be anything from your phone system menu to audiobooks. social media posts, explainer videos on your website, whatever you need. And listeners of Origin of Speaksies get 50% off. Just email me, moxie@yourbrainonfacts.com.
That's wonderful. You have a great voice, and
Yep.
with everybody coming out with podcasts these days and things, I think that's a great service to offer.
Yeah, I do podcast intros too.
And what is the email again, Moxie?
Moxie@yourbrainonfacts.com. And it's MOXIE, just in case you've never actually seen it in writing, which I'm discovering is a thing for people. I know anybody in the Northeast, like where they still drink Moxie, at least in some places,
Yeah.
they got it. Everybody, I get a lot of EY. I'm like, it doesn't even look good.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It looks good the way it is, and you're great the way you are. Look out for lightning bolts, and we'll talk to you soon, Moxie.
Thanks so much. See you guys.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Well, that was Know Your Onions with Moxie LaBouche. And so, Steve, that's it for tonight's show. Hopefully people will stick around if they want to hear the conversation after this.
That's right. Our post-game show available exclusively on patreon.com/speaksies. You will get to hear actually a story that I had to leave out of this episode.
Yes.
That involves me personally.
Yeah, so if you want to hear that and give us some money, keep Steve and his fashionable bandanas.
Yes.
Keep us able to pay for all the overhead we have here. We'd really appreciate it. But you know what? We appreciate you anyway. Thanks again for listening, and Bob's your uncle.
Watch out for bears, and kale is from the devil.
Obsolete. It must be my imagination, because I know I didn't hear you laugh. Speaksies.
Do you have any batteries that fit my body massager?
Body massager, please.
Right. You see, my back's been acting up lately.
Yeah, my back's been acting up too. In fact, it acts up every time my boyfriend leaves.
No, really, my back.
Save it, honey. Put it in the bank. I know it's happening. Here, these ought to work.
Yeah, that'll work. Thank you.
Yeah, go on, get out of here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Body